Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Riverdale. A crazy good episode of Riverdale with a lot of twists and turns and developments. Obviously, just going to run through everything about the episode really quickly. First of all, we had that whole situation where it's like, obviously, like, Veronica and Archie end up telling Betty about the fact is, yeah, that gun had to be planted. There's no way we missed it. They try to tell their parents, which their parents are like, no, why are you getting involved in all this? Maybe you missed something. And then the whole situation about Alice being involved, everyone's like, really? Like, you got the kids involved in everything? And she's just kind of like clamored up and everything. But nevertheless, they ended up kind of tracking down Jughead because Jughead was trying to leave town as soon as possible because he broke down. Like, in his mind, it's like, my dad's guilty. It's like, I believed so hard that he wanted to change and everything. It's like, nope, he's guilty. I mean, even later on conversations, like, you know, when it was all said and done, like, it's, especially when his dad ends up confessing, it's like, his whole world shatters because it's like, yeah, it's because in his mind, it's like, the fact of the matter is like, it makes sense. Everything you did, you know, trying to get close to me, reading my stories and stuff like that. It was all to see if I was getting too close to you and everything. It's like fooling me into thinking like, oh, you're going to work, everything, you're cleaning up, you're not drinking and stuff like that. He thought it was all a ploy. Which, to really quickly go over that, like, the whole situation with his dad, I was not expecting that. Like, obviously, his dad knows about the details because we end up finding out later on he was involved. But that caught me by surprise, like, because immediately my brain went, no, he knows all the details because he read Jughead's, like, story. It's like, obviously from the very beginning, because we already know, because the whole Archie and Veronica not finding the gun originally, it's like, yeah, it was planted on him and stuff like that. But I was like, what does that mean, like, that he's saying all this now? It's like, obviously he's got to be saying it because he's trying to protect, you know, I mean, it turns out to be the case, Jughead, but more so than anything, like, yeah, obviously that's the only reason why he would lie, take the blame for this, because it's like, because to me, I was like, there's no way he's behind this murder. So the only way he knows those details is if he was actually, like, if he could learn them from Jughead's story. That's what I initially thought. But it turns out he was kind of involved in it. But I'll kind of run through that in a little bit. But really quickly, the point I was going to make early was the fact that originally he was going to get on a bus and go to his mom. He ends up calling his mom. It's like, hey mom, I'm going to try, crash on your couch, with you and Jelly Bean for a while. And we never hear the other side of the conversation, but he's like, no, I understand, and bye. Obviously, his mom doesn't know the circumstances behind why he's calling and stuff like that. But it's like, nevertheless, like, that's what kind of threw me for a loop, though. It's still like, it still bothered me. It's like, why wouldn't she, like, I feel like in a situation like that, you'd be all, like, you haven't seen your son in probably a very, very long time. It's like, oh yeah, Jughead, of course you can cry. It's like, no, like, she kind of, like I said, we didn't get the other side of the conversations, but she said no. Now, like I said, obviously she doesn't know about the situation, and maybe in her mind's like, no, Jughead, you got school. The fact of the matter is it's last minute and stuff like that. You shouldn't be taking this trip by yourself. I don't know. Maybe, yeah, like I said, whatever we didn't hear in the conversation. But the pessimistic side of my brain is like, don't tell me it's a situation where it's like she's pushing Jughead on, kind of keeping Jughead on the outs, because maybe it's like whatever life she has. I think she's in Ohio is what they were saying, but the life she has there, maybe it's so good that, it's like, oh, maybe Jughead being here will kind of cause some problems. It's like, because Jughead's kind of like, probably even amongst his family, he's kind of probably like an outcast to a certain extent. Because I remember like his mom and his dad like constantly fought all the time. But remember, he made a whole deal about they only acted normal on his birthday, which is why he kind of hated it so much. So what if that's kind of connected to that? And like maybe she doesn't want Jughead to be there to kind of ruin things. Maybe she even outright resents him because the fact is that Jughead stayed with FP instead of going with her. So maybe in her mind she's like, oh, you chose your dad's side, so stay with your dad, don't come here. Like I said, maybe it's also because the fact is that maybe she doesn't want Jughead there because like I brought up the whole happy life and everything. Maybe she's already moved on. Maybe she actually has another kid besides Jelly Bean there now too. Maybe the person she's with has other kids, so now like gets into the whole situation of Jughead having step siblings and stuff like that. And like I said, it's just, that's where my mind initially goes. But like I said, don't really know. So that's just me throwing it out there. It's just conjecture. So, but obviously you have like everyone not backing down from this whole situation. They end up visiting Joaquin, which, Kevin finds out about like everything that was happening, which kind of upsets him. I mean, obviously him and Joaquin are still at a somewhat good point. Obviously they kiss when he said, kind of saying goodbye to him, but it's like finding out that basically Joaquin as well as FP actually disposed of Jason's body. And that was like, Dude, so I was like, oh, like it could, because that took me by shock. Like I said earlier, like I 100% thought he learned all that information from Jughead's story, but it's like, no, he knew all the information, he knew all these minute details because he was involved in it. Granted, obviously he's not the killer, and because he's being framed for it and everything, but because everything's coming to a head because this whole FP situation has like Hermione like flipping out because it's like if he talks, this means everything that's been connected to him in the lodges will come out. Basically, any dealings he's had with Hiram, and it's like it's going to come back and have a backlash on their family. So she's trying to get prepared. She's like, if necessary, we need to leave as soon as possible. And it also turns into a whole situation with Archie and his dad. His dad's like, maybe almost outright saying like, let's keep a distance from Jughead because there's like so much trouble that follows him and everything. Which Archie's like, no, the fact of the matter is, like Jughead needs us in his time. It's like, but Fred's like, I'm not his guardian. I can't really take him in. But it's like, Archie's almost like, screw that. Like, he needs us in this particular time. And basically, Fred kind of throws it in his face. So it's like, oh, maybe you should move to Chicago and be with your mom. And he's like, I wasn't even thinking about that, but maybe I should. He's like, yeah, you should, because the fact of the matter is, at least this will keep you out of trouble. Which, I mean, Fred later on explained, obviously, like, Fred, everything he does is, like, he's worried about his son, especially with, like, circumstances being what they are. Just, Riverdale's not the place it once was. But once, like I've said before, the fact of the matter is, Riverdale's always been like this. It's just the secrets and skeletons have always just been buried down beneath, and Jason's death has just brought it all to the surface, so. We ended up finding out about Jason's jacket. Like, the fact of the matter is, because the one person that FP had called was Joachim and telling him to not go through that. Because obviously that was kind of like a last resort type of situation. He's like, don't go through that because it'd be too dangerous. What they ended up finding in the jacket is a flash drive. And they play the flash drive. And the flash drive was a recording. And it shows that that the one who killed Jason was none other than Cliff. His own father killed him. It also showed him taking the ring off of Jason. That's how he got it in the first place. Because kind of coinciding with that, we learned a very interesting secret about the Coopers and the Blossoms. Hal finally reveals it. Okay, so the reason why I stole all those files and everything is because I didn't want the police to eventually investigate our family, in this whole situation. Because he reveals that, like, yes, Clifford's, the Blossom great-great-grandpappy killed the Cooper's great-great-grandpappy. But the secret along with that is that they were actually brothers. So the Coopers were originally Blossoms, meaning that Jason and Polly were related. And I think the way they explain it, they're like, at the very least, like third cousins or something like that. So that means there was kind of a whole incestual relationship. And now it's like, then you have Alice being like, so that's why you're so adamant about her not having that baby. It's like, that's what it was all about. That's his biggest problem with the whole baby situation, as well as the whole situation with her dating Jason. Like, because he didn't want to admit that, because that just would have turned into a whole scandalous situation all on its own. But when they actually confront the Blossoms, the fact of the matter is, the twisted thing is out of Clifford's mouth is like, oh yeah, but it just hey, at the very least, it just makes him that much more of a Blossom. And it's like, that, okay, I guess that's your way of looking at the silver lining to this. He has to, because, like, to him, more so than anything, those babies are kind of the crux of everything. Now that Jason's gone, Jason was supposed to be the one to take over the operation, but the fact of the matter is, now that they're gone, obviously he's talking about prepping Cheryl, but I think it's probably like, prep Cheryl until, like, the time comes that the babies are old enough to prep them, or prep her so that she can eventually prep the twins. I don't know what the case may be, but the fact of the matter is, it is Clifford. Like, the fact of the matter is, like, Cheryl had even asked her mom, she's like, is there a possibility that Dad actually, you or Dad did this? Because it's like, why did Jason leave? That is the question it keeps being asked. Why did Jason leave? And it's never been an outright. Obviously, initially, the dad, like, Clifford had brought up in an episode or two ago, like, oh yeah, the fact of the matter is, he left because he had we disagreed about the business and stuff like that. He didn't want to take over and stuff that like that. Wanted to leave the family business behind. And Cheryl like, her mom, Penelope, ends up grabbing her and taking her to like, it's like, okay, you want to know the deep dark secret? It's this maple syrup. And I was like, at first I was like, oh, okay. So don't tell me it's like the maple syrup isn't kind of like your family business like you claim it is. Maybe at one point in time it was, but maybe the quote unquote well kind of ran short or ran dry to be more precise. And the fact of the matter is maybe it's like they've been buying their syrup from somewhere else and selling it like it's their own or something like that, just to keep the family blossom legacy alive or something like that. But it turns out not to be the case, because at the end of the episode, we see, obviously, when it was all said and done, Clifford hung himself. But I looked away at the wrong time and didn't quite look at it. But obviously in the maple syrup barrels that are in like that farmhouse, we see there are things in there which I would only assume are probably drugs. So now it adds a different layer, because like the question once now becomes like, okay, he did kill Jason, but why? And obviously this whole situation is making Hermione be like, oh yeah, the fact of the matter is, because Veronica's sorry about it. She's like, oh, I thought Dad was behind it. Like, obviously that's what she's always wanted from this whole situation, was to get the truth. And now she's finding out, oh, Dad wasn't involved. Maybe Clifford was the one that did it. But now it's like, there's an extra layer above it. It's like, why did he do it? And now it seems like it might be the fact is that obviously he was taking orders from someone else. In this particular case, it might have been Hiram, like, for all we know. But then again, it's like, then what was that whole situation, the whole situation between him and Clifford? Was that actually a ploy where they tried to pretend like they were enemies so that no one would suspect that they're actually working together the entire time? Like, does he have him selling drugs? Is FP even ahead of the Serpents? Is there someone even above FP? Because obviously even that's a thing too. FP is still in big trouble because obviously he tampered with evidence. Just everything he's done, he's got like a long rap sheet. He's done a lot of things, so it's like he's not completely out of the woods. He may not have killed Jason, but he was an accessory to it, disposing of the body and everything. So, because this whole situation caught me by surprise, because I wasn't expecting it to kind of be like, oh, boom, in your face. Because it's like, obviously, like, next week's episode is the season finale. So I was like, this is like some season finale type of stuff. And it's like, because like, especially the whole situation, like, obviously when FP was in jail, like, what that meant for Jughead. Because obviously, like, the moment he came to school, like, it's like, no, I thought Jughead was going to stay home, but it's like, he comes to school and everyone in the cafeteria is staring at him. And it's like, understandably so. And he walks up and apologizes to, Cheryl, just because he was so adamant about, like, at the time he really believed his dad did it and everything, so. But you can tell, and obviously, like, Jughead could tell by the way he was like, you could tell him playing it up, telling Jughead never to come back here. The fact of the matter is, the only thing he was sad about was the fact that he got caught, but you can see it in his eyes, like, almost tearing up, and Jughead saw through it too. He's like, yeah, my dad's never been good at lying, so. And there was also that other dude, his name, what was it, Mustang? The guy that Joaquin took them to, because he's one of the people that was there during the whole situation who knew about disposing of the body. I was like, oh yeah, the rich guy. He mentioned a rich guy, and obviously we see that that's Cliff. But, like I said, there's definitely another layer to this. But the fact of the matter is, he got high and obviously overdosed. The question is then, it's like, is that an actual overdose? Did he kill himself? Or was it murder to kind of cover up things? So, I mean, now you look back on it, like the whole FP situation, like, it's, now you've wondered, well, the fact of the matter is, I was wondering, I was like, oh, how much of that was true? It's like, no, in retrospect, it's like, everything he said was 100% true. Like, obviously, he didn't outright kill Jason, but everything he mentioned was true up to a certain point, obviously. The question is, why did he, I guess if it came out that he stole those files from, the sheriff, then it less likely for the sheriff to be like, oh, well, if you steal those files, who else he would, maybe he didn't want to take the chance that things might lead to other people being suspects, and then Cliff find out about it and then, hurt Jughead the way he hurt his own son. I mean, that's the thing, though. Obviously, as we see, like, the family business isn't such a great thing. Like I said, like, I didn't catch a good look, but I can only assume it's connected to drugs or something else. And so maybe that's why Jason had found out the truth about the family. It's like, oh, my family business is built on lies. Like, maybe that's what this whole situation between the Coopers and the Blossoms originally was about the two grandpappies, the two brothers. Maybe that's what the split was about, actually, the truth. And, like, the fact of the matter is, their family business has probably been run like, the Blossom family business has been run like this for a while, and maybe that's what that blood feud has been about for all these years. So maybe not. We'll have to wait and see. So, Like I said, just overall overall fantastic episode. So many good twists and turns, but so many questions of like, where will everything go? What does this mean for Cheryl? What does this mean for Penelope going forward? The fact of the matter is, it's out there that everyone now knows Clifford killed Jason. But now it's probably going to come out about the family business, and it's like, what does that mean for them going forward? Like, who is benefiting from all of this? Who was at the top of all this? Is it Hiram, or is it someone else? Is he at the very least connected? Like, I still have not, like, I get the feeling like when it comes down to it next episode, we're probably going to meet him. He's probably going to be at the very, very end of the episode. It's like, oh, Veronica, look, daddy's home, or something like that. I don't know. We have Archie deciding like he's not leaving now. Like, he's not going to go with his mom. His mom's going back to Chicago, but he can't go with her because like his friends need him right now in this time, dude. And it's kind of a different thing too. Like, something interesting that kind of popped in my head is like, obviously, like I like what they did with it too. It's like you saw like obviously the group looking at the video and then like hearing like the shot being fired, but obviously not seeing it until later on. The big reveal. But like Betty cried and everything, and I was like, at first I was like, oh, does that mean it's someone that she knows that did it? Like, well, what does that mean? And it's like, no, because she saw Jason die, and I mean, and that's enough for anyone. But I think an extra layer on top of it is finding out, like, oh yeah, I just found this out, but Jason's actually family. He's like my cousin, so it's like she just watched not only just someone die, but it's like finding out that she actually watched a family member of hers die. So. And what does this all mean going forward with FP? Obviously, like, Jughead is probably going to try and do everything he can to kind of get things working out with his dad, like, trying to figure out, like, a way to help him with all this stuff. But still, like, at the end of the day, like, you can't blame FP for what he did. I mean, yes, he did some illegal stuff, but at the same time, it was all for protecting his son. He was always, everything he's done has been for Jughead's sake, so. Like I said, next week's episode is the season finale. I'm so eager to find out what goes down in the season finale. Like, what other twists and turns are we going to get? I just can't wait, dude. I cannot wait. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.